Hello and welcome to the Miscast table. My name is Jonas.
And my name is Måns. And today we are going to take a look at the new expansion for Warhammer Underworlds Harrowdeep, because we have received a bunch of new information lately.
And we thought that we would start by taking a look at the map that is released of Harrowdeep. It's a good deal of work put into it, lots of interesting information that might not necessarily mean that certain warbands are going to be introduced into the Underworlds, but it does hint at it at least.
Yeah, not guaranteed that any faction represented on this map will be a new warband coming, but it's also quite likely, because otherwise they would be giving hints without they're hyping up stuff that doesn't come to fruition, and that's not a good idea.
That does seem unlikely from a marketing perspective. Should we take a look at the warbands that you are mostly interested in, and then we can take a bit of a closer look at the ones that I hope for?
Yeah, we could start with the Daughters of Cain and the Dark Elves. And in the middle of the map here, next to Harrowdeep, we have Hagnar. And it's the first temple that Moratti founded, the first temple of Cain. And we also have Ironshard here in the top left, which is also home to a sect of Cain. So we definitely have some Daughters of Cain in the area, but there's more elf presence.
We have the Ulthern Citadel. And you were mentioning that this one is an important place, a stronghold for the High Elves.
Yeah, it definitely is if you look at the lore of the High Elves. Ulthane is the ancestral home of all the elves. But in the end, you have a split between all the elves, a fraction. So the High Elves still live in Ulthane, at least in the end of the old world. So that hints at it being High Elves.
And whilst it might be a citadel that is overtaken by some other faction of the elves.
We have the Drukasur, which sounds very dark elvish, and if we look at Ulthane, there have been speculations about shadow warriors or shadow elves. It was elves that were loyal to Malekith, the Witch King, during the Sundering, when the Dark Elves and the High Elves split apart. But instead of following Malekith and founding the Dark Elves together with him, they stayed with the High Elves, even though they belonged to his faction from the beginning. So they're seen with a bit of disdain from the regular High Elves, but there's a very, very interesting kind of faction of the High Elves. So it will be super fun to get to know those.
Harrowdeep is probably the place to introduce them, if they would.
And I think it fits the theme very well with the skulking and the a bit darker side of things. And speaking of skulking, I guess we could transition to
Games Workshop has, as mentioned, put in a great deal of effort into this map, and one of the things that they have opted to include is a particularly Skaven symbol on the far right side of the map, and also a notation of there being a suspected Eshin lair. And Clan Eshin being one of the 4 great clans of the Skaven Empire, being experts in assassination, poison, and some other foul business that the Skavens are notoriously known for. I think that it might be time to have another Skaven warbands in the Underworlds.
Yeah, that would be super fun. I always liked the Skaven, so...
And an assassin faction that is... heavily reliant on dealing damage and possibly having some fun rules, because
I think it fits right in. And if you look at the lore for Underworlds in general, it's incredibly dark and very it's like grim dark at its finest. So all of these assassin and darker types of warbands fits right in.
All in all, I think just releasing this kind of map is probably a good move.
I think the speculation part before something is released is sometimes just as fun as the release itself.
It's fun to get into the hype, this is something that might happen, and then get your hopes worked up. Yeah,
I think so too. But should we leave the map and the lore and go over to the rules and the cards that they have?
Possibly leaving, only note that if someone else has any thoughts regarding this map, we would very much like to take part of that as well. So please do leave a comment if you have noticed something that we didn't.
Yeah, there's probably some of these places that have lore written about them, but I don't know any. I don't recognize any of them. So if you do know anything about any of these places, please write so down below. So, if we start with the first mechanic of the new Warhammer Underworlds at Harrowdeep, we have Gloom. And give us your thoughts on Gloom. And first of all, maybe explain what Gloom actually is.
Well, Gloom is a new kind of feature token, and whilst that is a term in of itself that some people might not know, it's the objective tokens. And on one side, you normally have a lethal hex on the objective token.
Yeah, looks like this.
And then replacing that in Harrowdeep is these Gloom hex tokens. They come into play upside down, meaning that you have the Gloom that are providing defensive capabilities, but then in the power step you are allowed to flip it so that it becomes an objective, allowing you to score glory points from objective cards or other features that might care about holding objective tokens. Let's get into the details. What does this mean for certain warbands? You were speaking about Miori's Purifier.
Yeah, I think those are a good example because they want to hold objectives. They're really good at playing the objective holding playstyle, especially with the Bahama. And the thing you can do is you can probably stand on a feature token and not flip it to an objective. You stand in the Gloom, get the defensive bonuses, and then flip it in like in the last activation or something like that. So I think for objective holding warbands, I think it's a very strong mechanic if utilized correctly. If we look at Bahama, you can use cards to make him giving a guard token and stuff like that. So then he has the guard, but you can then if you stand next to him with one fighter, he has no failures. Everything is a success.
Then you just have to roll more successful attacks.
You basically need crits and stuff. So
it does specifically allow you to count double supportive dice results as a successful result.
Yeah, and I think this gives another element to the game, because while these can be flipped, you can flip a objective token into a lethal hex. It happens quite rarely. There's some warbands that utilize it more than others, but it's not super prevalent to do it. But I think now you will do it every game. It will happen lots of times.
And I think it's one of those interactions. It's simple enough to understand, so it doesn't come across as complex for a new player, but it does add strategic depth to the game. So I think this is one of the good
I think it's a good rule update, and we looked at some cards. We're gonna show you some cards that they're basically seen no play before, and now they're god tier. They're super good.
We have first of all, this card is fortunately going to rotate, because otherwise it will probably be included in almost every deck.
Yeah, it would be restricted. It's too good.
Change of Fortunes, meaning that whenever you stand on objective tokens, regardless of whatever side of the board it is, you just flip it and then you get to surge score 1 glory point.
Yeah, so all you need to do is move one of your fighters onto a feature token, either the Gloom side or the objective side, stand on it, and then in the action phase you flip it and the surge score. So it's so easy. Easy.
And whilst that card is rotating, we have Hrothgar's Man-Trappers. They have access to a card that does exactly that, and it's even better actually, because it's the Arm of the Everwinter, and it allows you to score this surge objective whenever a feature token is flipped, but it also allows you to score it if that feature token would be removed from the battlefield.
Yeah,
so
I think so. Wasn't it about... removed from the battlefield as well. So
it's basically a guarantee that any way you twist and turn, if you're getting yourself onto a feature token with Hrothgar's Man-Trappers, you're going to get a glory point if you have
this card is auto-include.
I think so as well.
Yeah, we haven't put, but it should be no way you wouldn't be able to score this.
And then we have the Star Seeker...
Starblood Stalkers.
Starblood Stalkers. Yeah. I always...
They have a similar card. It's almost the same thing, but it's not as strong, because you can only use it. You have to be in the enemy territory. You have to flip a feature token in the enemy territory to score it.
But I think that as long as you are an aggressive warband, you would probably like to consider this card at least.
Yeah, I mean it's a search objective. You get to score, draw another card. I think it's too good to pass up almost. You have to have an incredibly defensive playstyle to pass on this. I think.
Yeah, or certain other search objectives that are already taking up this slot.
Yeah.
But
it's easily scored,
I would definitely consider this card whenever building a Starblood Stalkers.
Yeah, and it haven't seen much play at all.
Yeah. No, because flipping tokens isn't usually part of the game plan, because it requires you to including other cards that you normally wouldn't want in your warband. But being able to do it just as a regular part of your turn on activation.
Yeah, it makes it way stronger. So some cards got an upswing for sure, some objective cards.
Yeah. But I think, all in all, I'm very optimistic for Gloom. I think this is one of the things that, personally, I look forward to it.
Yeah, I think Gloom is a good change and it's gonna be interesting. And it gives like sets the precedent that they can do different things in different seasons. Like now we have the lethal hexes and the objectives, and then we have Gloom, and then next season we have something else. Like they can change things up between seasons but still keep the cards, and I think that's fun. Let's leave Gloom for now and look at some of the other new rules.
I think so. Looking at the other rules updates or rules addition of mechanics that have been seen in the game previously but now have proper keywords for them.
Yeah, and I think that giving stuff keywords is a great idea. They do that in Magic the Gathering all the time, and it makes it way easier to remember rules. If you tell someone like Menace, they know exactly what it is, first strike. You don't have to explain like, Menace is when you don't have to write all the text, because most people have remembered what it is.
And it also gives you an easy way of looking things up. Like if I want to know what Menace is, I can just type it into a search engine and then I get the result.
You get like all the cards. Because when I was gonna look for cards that had, if you take Grievous for example, it says that if an attack action has the Grievous keywords on it, on a critical hit, that attack action has 1+ damage. So I was gonna look up like which card has that mechanic, and I was like, what am I even gonna look for?
Yeah.
And that's the benefit of a keyword, that you can find stuff.
And one of the things that Games Workshop has struggled with, I would say, is that they have cards that does the same thing, but they have completely different wording for doing that things. They like realized in season 1, no, this isn't the way we should word this card to function as we want it to. So then they bring it back with a revised wording.
Yeah, and a lot of similar cards that have bit different wording, but they could just share a keyword and things would be so much easier. So I think keywords is a great thing, and there's some interesting one. Grievous, of course,
let's get into that one. That is, there is a card already on upgrade called Fighter's Ferocity that does exactly this. And you mentioned Tooth Dagger, who also has this rule.
from Headcracker's Mad Mob has this rule.
The rule is probably interesting if it is attached to an upgrade or an attack that has 3 dice plus.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be particularly interested in a card that has 1 attack die Grievous. That doesn't seem very strong.
I mean, like Fighter's Ferocity doesn't see that much play right now.
I don't know which fighter would put it on there. Like if a fighter already is rolling 3 or 4 dice, I would much prefer just giving +1 damage that is always in effect than just having him have to roll crits to get that additional damage. So I agree with you there. But it's a balancing act. Like having Grievous allows Games Workshop to perhaps introduce a fighter card that might not. It would be too strong if you just gave it straight away +1 damage. Yeah. But if you gave them Grievous, it fits the right.
Yeah, and just getting a keyword for what Tooth Dagger does and what the Fighter's Ferocity does is great in and of itself. Yeah. But I think we'll see some more of that, otherwise they wouldn't.
But I would consider this card, like this rule, it's a streamlining.
It's just a new keyword for something that exists, and it's decent, it's not overpowered. That's about it.
Then we have Vulnerable, and this is one of the things that it happens all the time when playing Warhammer Underworlds. Yeah. It has a very specific rule text. Would you like to take us through it?
Yeah, so it says that a fighter who has a number of wound counted that is 1 less than their wound characteristic, so they would be taken out of action if they were dealt 1 damage, is vulnerable. So it's a fighter that only has 1 remaining life, and they have a number of wound counters that is 1 less than their wound characteristics. And we have been having a long discussion here about a certain fighter.
Yeah, because if we look at the fighter that we are talking about, it's Spinefin from Illuminati Deepkin. Yeah. He is the lone fighter in Underworlds at the current state that has just 1 wound characteristic.
Yeah, he has 1 wound characteristic.
And meaning that, as I would presume, as the wording is as this, that if you have 0 wound tokens on Spinefin, then he is considered to be vulnerable just from the get-go.
Yeah, because that's what we've been arguing about, because if we have a number of wound counters that is 1 less than the wound characteristics, and 0 is less than 1, and he would be taken out of action if he would dealt 1 damage, so...
Yeah, it does seem as Spinefin is vulnerable.
So he should be vulnerable from the get-go. I'm not sure if that's gonna mean anything, but
we'll see. Like we'll definitely keep that fighter card in mind when looking at the cards.
And we haven't seen. I'm not sure there's any like interactions, but there might be with fighter.
I could easily see a card existing, take an objective card. Score this card if there are X amount of enemy fighters that are vulnerable.
Yeah.
That would mean that you would see Spinefin on the board, and whilst nothing has been dealt, no damage, you could still count them as vulnerable.
So it's gonna be interesting to see what they do with that one.
Yeah.
But we have one final keyword to talk about.
And this one is probably the one that I like the least. I think this one is weird. It's Stagger.
I like it. I think we think different here, but I actually like this keyword. But what it says is that if you have the Stagger keyword on an attack and you deal damage to another fighter, they are staggered, and that means that you can re-roll 1 attack die against them the next attack that you do.
Yeah, and it also removes the guard token. As
it
you're
also
placing the Stagger. And this is the thing that I find peculiar, because having a guard token, and then you would need to have an attack that has Stagger, so you can then most often it's not really a great activation to trying to make an attack against someone that has a defensive guard token already on them, because whilst attacking you need to succeed with the attack to get the Stagger keyword triggering. So the fighter that is on guard is getting all the bonuses from being on guard when you are attacking them, which is something that you normally are hesitant to do. There are usually better ways to spend your activation.
Yeah, they do gain the bonus when you attack a fighter with a guard token, but I think it's better when a fighter... I think it's like, how often does a fighter have a guard token? Sure, it does happen, but it's not every game a fighter has a guard token. It's mostly like objective focused.
Yeah, like you play you bring an upgrade, you bring a ploy card, and then you get...
Yeah, but I think it's better when you're just attacking a fighter. If we look at, like, if I'm gonna use Sarbak's Gits to fight Molog's mob, now I can all of a sudden swarm my fighters onto Molog, and I can stagger him, and I can reroll. Like, I think it might be even better when the fighter doesn't have a guard token, because I agree, like when you talk about like removing a guard token, you still have to get through that guard token in the first place, so it kind of defeats the purpose, because usually when you take guard token, it's because you're standing on an objective. That's a very common scenario, and if you manage to hit through the guard token, you can push them unless they're Bahama. But every other fighter you can, so that kind of really defeats the purpose of Stagger against...
That was my thought as well when I was looking at these new rules. I thought that, well, this seems weird. Like, I could understand it if you stagger someone, like, prior to the attack. Then you stagger them, they lose their defensive bonuses, and then you go in for the damage. Yeah. That would, like, seem proper, but this time you have to do it the other way, and then it doesn't seem really strong.
No, when we're talking about guard tokens, I agree, but in other situations, I think it might be strong. Attacking a fighter that doesn't have a guard token, I think it might be strong.
You've convinced me. I see the benefits of having this rule around. We have something completely new that isn't a rule set either. It's more of a mechanic in of itself.
New cards.
Illusion upgrades.
Yeah, and illusionary upgrades or illusion upgrades are upgrades that you can play without spending glory points, but they are removed when you take damage.
Okay, so that seems like an interesting way to go. Like, it does seem to favor very aggressive playstyles, and we kind of saw that with a bunch of the keywords as well. Like, Vulnerable seems to care about dealing damage, Grievous seems to support that act of doing damage, and then we have Stagger that removes defensive capabilities. And now we have illusion upgrades, so you can get an early upgrade advantage over your opponent and just go, like, deal the damage.
Yeah, because before it was before it's still going to be, but gaining the first glory point, playing the first upgrade and getting the ball rolling is incredibly important. And some warbands are way better than others at doing that. But the illusion upgrades, they take away the need for that in a way. You can just play illusion upgrades and focus on that instead of having to score glory points very early. So I think it's a very interesting mechanic for sure. And you can also use some of the weaker fighters that deal maybe 1 damage but roll a lot of dice. Now all of a sudden they are great tools to remove illusion upgrades, so that gives them a boost as well. So I think it's gonna be fun to see what this does. I'm excited for these as well, I must say.
It all comes down to what kind of cards, what is the ink that they put on the card themselves.
Yeah. And also we talked about that, if these ones are popular, all the cards that deal 1 damage. You have the stone, poison and
you have some few poisons as you mentioned, and also being able to push a fighter into a lethal hex. It's going to be something that you need to look out for, because if you are in the scenario of you having played 1 illusion upgrade on your fighter and he's next to a lethal hex, you just get pushed into it, then you just lose your upgrade, I presume.
Yeah, it says if you take any damage. But yeah, I think it sounds exciting. It's gonna be fun to see what they do with this.
Now we get into Grand Alliance cards.
Yeah.
We've seen a few cards that has these kind of alliance symbols onto them. It does. This one is also one of the rules upgrades that I'm most excited for.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this, and we're gonna have the 4 Grand Alliances. It's Chaos, it's Order, it's Destruction, and it's Death, right?
Yeah.
Something like that, yeah. But I think that this is gonna be a big upswing for the older warbands. I think this is a great way of bringing the older warbands back. The only risk I see with this is if the Grand Alliance cards are a bit too strong, then they're gonna be featured in every deck that is of that alliance, and that might make the game less varied. And that's
we don't need an even staler meta. I think that it would be problematic if they are overly enthusiastic about printing all the strong cards in this Grand Alliance.
Yeah, but they can technically print card that targets certain older warbands
and push factions that need help with this kind of card.
Yeah.
But I'd hate to see them printing too many strong cards. Much more. I'm much more open to the idea of them printing situationally strong cards. If your warband wants to do this kind of game plan, then you get a really strong Grand Alliance card, so that you can play this card in multiple warbands where you also have that game plan. Yeah,
I think there's a lot of ways of targeting weaker warbands and make them strong based on their playstyle.
And then also you have the safety valve. You don't get to push, if you would play a card that is very strong to every objective holding warband, it would be included in every deck that wants that. But making it a Grand Alliance card means that only certain factions can easily take.
Yeah, and it probably means that unlike the faction specific cards, it would rotate out as well. So that means when you print the faction specific cards or warband specific cards, they're gonna be in the game forever, and that's a big deal. That's a big deal for sure. Having a card that does not rotate. So,
but the most obvious thing about this is that it does seem as if we are getting a new card pack.
Yeah, we do, and I think.
Was it inevitable, or is it still inevitable?
Yeah, I think it's probably already printed and packed and just waiting to be shipped. I think so, but
I'm a bit I can easily see myself playing with sleeves at tournament settings. It's a good practice to do so, just for the fairness sake of not having marked cards or stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it is weird to change the card backs of the card game.
Yeah, but I mean, if you do a change to a game, you can ask yourself one question. Does this change make the game better? And I guess you can say no. Okay, then you ask the other question. Does this change make the game worse? And worse might be a harsh word, but it does make it a bit difficult to play. It's harder for people who don't have sleeves, because now you all of a sudden probably have to buy sleeves because you can't play with mixed cards. So you have increased the cost of playing. So it is a change for the worse. And I'm not sure how. Some people defend that and say like, "Oh, you're entitled" and all that stuff. But you made the game worse, albeit slightly.
Yeah, and I don't really see that the design in of itself is that much better than anything else. It maybe. No, if they want to print new design on the front side, I wouldn't mind it at all, because that's hidden information from the opponent anyways. I just don't see the benefit of printing updated card backs.
No, but it's not like Magic the Gathering is going, oh, you can change the card back. We're gonna do that. No, they know that it's a dumb idea. But the people that, and if you want to defend that, that's fine. But it's a bit weird. Like if Games Workshop bought an airplane and started dropping golf ball on people's heads, people would be like, oh, you can buy a helmet. But you shouldn't have to buy a helmet. You shouldn't have to buy sleeves. I think it's a bit weird. And I mean, it's not a deal breaker or anything for me. I'm gonna play it anyway. I'm gonna buy it anyway. I just think it's a weird decision. I mean, that's all. I can play the sleeves.
I try to be neutral in this case, but I do see the arguments that you're bringing.
Yeah, but it's not a big deal either. I mean, for me, I have sleeves, tons of sleeves over here. It's all right.
Yeah, but it's gonna mess up your assortment.
Yeah. I've sorted all my cards into binders, and now I probably have to take all of them out and put them into sleeves, and that's gonna be a lot of work. But yeah, it is what it is.
It is what it is. Finally, we have rival decks, or the whole new format rather, the rival format. It doesn't specifically state anything new that we didn't know already. It just seems to be further marketing detail that they want to make notice of this new rival format that's gonna revitalize the experience for new players.
Yeah, man, I think that this is a good thing. Or what do you think?
I'm completely neutral. I don't know if I particularly dislike or like this. I've always been in the mindset that if I'm playing a game, I want to try to utilize the customization to this fullest. Like if I can play a warband, I want to play them as in the way I would find it.
Yeah, you're customized way. Yeah. But I guess we have let's take Magic the Gathering for example. You can buy starter decks, but you can upgrade them afterwards. But this seems like a format where you always play rival. Maybe you can upgrade the decks as well, but it seems like the rival format is consistent of this rival decks without them being upgraded.
I could see the appeal. You take away one of the thresholds to getting into the game. Yeah. If you have a rivals deck, then you don't need to particularly care about deck building. You can just try to read up on the rules, try to understand rules as well as possible, and then you have the standardized rivals decks. Then you just draw cards, try to read the cards, and just play them.
Yeah, and there is a card game that does this already, and it's Pokemon TCG Online. They have a format. They have the standard, and I'm not sure.
Is it popular there?
Yeah, it's pretty popular. It's at least for new players. It's a great way of doing daily quests and stuff you have. And you play it's called theme decks, I think. And you buy a theme decks from the store, and you can buy it from coins, and then you only play other theme decks against each other. And it's a great way of learning the game, and I think it's quite fun. It was a long time since I played, but I think it's fun.
It's not for me, but it might be really good for the game.
Yeah,
and that is something I'm in full support of.
Yeah, it makes it easy for new players to get into the game. If you can buy a starter set, you can play with your wife or whatever. It's quite. I think it's easy to pick it up. So I'm positive, and the more players into the game will just mean that Games Workshop will spend more time and money.
And that the community grows, and that more players become advanced players, and with more advanced players, you can have more expert players.
Yeah, because at least in the Pokemon TCG Online, I think it works quite well. I think it's quite a liked feature. So yeah, I'm positive here.
If I take a look at how Magic did it, they printed wildly imbalanced decks that were definitely not meant to be played against each other.
Yeah, I guess
they did print really, really good experiences as well.
Yeah, a lot of the Commander decks are really good.
Yeah, the Commander decks are that's a superb product. But I'm talking about the decks where you the dual decks.
Yeah.
Where you picked up one side and you played against the other.
But yeah, I know what you mean. But I think it's quite difficult to print balanced.
That's the telltale of a good game developer. I think that what we have seen from these community posts, they merit a bit of a hype. I think this is good for the game.
I think so too. And I guess that's all of the information we have right now. If you have any thoughts on anything we have said or anything we have missed, please leave some comments down in the comment section down below.
Have a discussion with us. We really
disagree with us.
Yeah, we really like arguing. We want to
spark a discussion, and we haven't filmed everything. We've got stuck in a lot of discussions, so that off-camera stuff. But it's we like that stuff, so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and especially, are there any cards that you think are going to be really strong going forward? Are there any mechanics that you think are going to benefit from these new rules upgrades? Or are you just excited about the rules themselves?
Yeah.
Do let us know. We can go on for hours.
Yeah, for sure.
And this video would be hours unless we cut it down.
Yeah, we've been sitting here for hours, but this video is not going to be hours. And also if you did like this video, liked us rambling about stuff, you can also give it a like. If you aren't subscribed, please do so, because we're gonna cover everything about Harrowdeep up until its release, and we're gonna cover the expansion after that and the one after that. So if you're into Underworlds, you should follow.
But we'll see you all next video, and then we're gonna play some Underworlds.
Yeah, next video is gonna be Underworlds.
Yeah,
so look forward to that. See ya.